Welcome to TC Tiahui Talks, Tia Chucha Centro Cultural, located on Tataviam land in the northeast San Fernando Valley, is rooted in ancestral knowledge, culture, the arts, literacy, and social justice as a means to personal and communal transformation. It is a place where hearts and minds have united for change for over 19 years. Join us as we share the stories of personal transformation and our understanding of the world that unites us as a community. We must remember that another world has always been possible. Tiahui, a Nahuatl word for adelante, to move forward. Like a spiral, together we move towards a better future, cognizant of the resiliency we carry from our past.
Hi everyone, welcome to Tia Chucha's Tiahui Talks. My name is Andrea and I am really excited to be here today with one of my closest friends and longest time friends, Jaime Navarro.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you as always. Thanks for having me.
How are you?
I'm good. Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm doing good. Okay, this doesn't need to be as like formal as
no.
Okay. Anyway, no, but thank you for being here and for taking your time out of your day to come and talk about yourself, and then also like something I feel is really important to talk about, something that's not talked about enough, I think, in our community, and that's trans lives and trans visibility. So thank you.
No, thank you for having me.
So I did also want to mention that I am a cis woman. I go by she, her, hers. Actually, what are your pronouns?
My pronouns are she, her, but they, them is always acceptable too.
So I felt it was important to point that out. And I also wanted to ask if at some point you want to call me out for anything I say, please do. I know it's not your job to educate me or anyone else's job. But yeah, I would appreciate it if you feel like it's necessary.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for giving me that permission.
So, Jaime, I know about you, but tell us a little bit about your life growing up. Who are you?
So, as everyone already heard, my name is Jaime Navarro. And I am a trans Mexican-American woman, first generation. I was born and raised here in the San Fernando Valley, or the 818, for those of you who know. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, as far as me growing up, I guess the main things I could say is I grew up lower class, big Latinx family. My mom is one of 10 siblings. And most of them, thank goodness, have all been, they reside here in the valley. There's a few in Mexico and a few have passed already in the last few years, but I grew up into a big family. My immediate family was small, just my mom, my sister, and my mom's spouse for some years. But yeah, I grew up in a Catholic home. Going to school, was always encouraged, not encouraged, but expected to do well in school so that I could have a good future, a promising future with money and security, to follow Catholicism, to believe in God. And yeah, but I definitely also think that I grew up in a home with love. For sure.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. And I know Jamie's family. I've met her sister and her mom, and I love them. And I remember going to high school with you and going to your cousin's parties. And
yeah.
Very loving family. Yeah.
A lot of parties.
A
lot of parties.
I miss those. We can't have those right now, but yeah. Well, I'm glad. I mean, to hear that, of course. But as of a few years ago, I found out that you identify as that you are transgender.
Mm-hmm.
So you told me actually last year on my birthday.
On
Do you
your
remember?
birthday, huh? Oh my God, way to steal your thunder,
Yeah,
huh?
I know. No.
Wow, I canceled for that.
No, but I mean that I felt that was so special. I mean, we were like walking down the street. This was before COVID hit
Mhm.
in 2020. We were walking down the streets of LA holding hands, and you're like, "I need to tell you
Hmm.
something," and that was so special to me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was I think you and I hadn't seen each other
No.
in a while.
Mhm.
I think it's funny because I think we've seen each other more during this pandemic than we did last year, like 2019.
I know that.
2019 going into 2020, but I don't think we had seen each other in a while, and so yeah, I think we were having like a little moment,
Mhm.
a few drinks in, walking downtown, and
Yeah.
I think it just felt like, oh, I'm gonna tell her now, you know.
Yeah. So can I ask how long? Well, first let's go into how do you define transgender?
Well, I guess it's funny, like I guess in the most basic, no, not basic, but most simple form, I think I'd say that transgender is a person who identifies as a gender that isn't what they were assigned to at birth.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think trans people are people who, you know, say, no, that's not who I am. I'm not who you've been telling me to be.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember a specific time learning what it is to be transgender or even hearing the word? How did you come to identify as transgender?
I think that I've always known that I was different, that I definitely wasn't a boy or a male. Mm-hmm. And so, or I guess just the box that I was being put in. But I think that we grow up seeing, like, I guess what this idea of what transgender is. And I mean, I'm sure you've seen this documentary, and maybe some of you people at home have seen this documentary that came out last year, I believe, Disclosure.
I don't think I have seen it.
Disclosure. So it's a really good documentary. Basically talks about, I guess, trans representation in media, film, and
Oh yes, I did.
yes,
see
you
it.
did see it.
it.
I think we talked about this.
It was a really good.
It
film,
was
yeah.
it's a really good film, an important film. If you haven't, it's on Netflix. Disclosure, watch it. But I think that I never really knew, like, clearly without this, I guess, tainted image of what transgender was. And I'm pretty sure I heard the words transvestite, transsexual before I heard the word transgender. Which, I mean, was the term that is, you know, like, it's old, like, people use that to describe, to identify someone who is transgender, and then for a while, and now is a derogatory term, like a slur, like a bad slur. And so I think that for many years, this idea of, like, what transgender was tainted, and that's not who I saw as me. And it wasn't until, I believe, the first transgender person that I knew, that I ever met, that I knew that was transgender, because obviously, you know, people say, I don't know a trans person. I'm like, that you know of, you know? But the first openly trans person that I met was a professor of mine that I had in my freshman year of college, in my first acting class. And her name was Alexandra Billings. And she's amazing. Like, for anyone who's ever met or has known Alex Billings, like, you know that she's a force. She has a presence that I think is, like, otherworldly, like ethereal. And I was in her class for, I want to say, a few weeks, and I had no idea that she was transgender. It wasn't until someone in my class, like, before she got in one day, because she always, like, walked in, like, maybe 5 minutes late or something. um someone told me like, "Oh yeah, Alex is trans." And I was like, "Trans? Like what?" And they're like, "Oh, she used to be a man," which obviously is not how you would say she
Mm-hmm.
used to be a man. Like that's not how you would say that. She's a woman. She always has been.
Mm-hmm.
Um and I was like, "Oh, like I had no idea." And yeah, she's someone who um changed my life in many ways and allowed me to see myself and guided me to see myself um, over the span of a few years in my life. Um, and I think it just kind of, I feel like that's where it started.
Mm-hmm.
I think it starts when you see you outside of you, and then you start to see you, like you and you. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. I think so. Yeah. Like, yeah, you don't know who's trans until like there's someone like Alexandra Billings
Mm-hmm.
who, well, in this case, she didn't tell y'all, right? It
Mm-mm.
was
No, I mean, I'm sure at some point in class she said it out loud.
mm-hmm.
Cause I mean, if you've seen a speech of hers, she always talks. She mentions that she's trans. She's an
Mm-hmm.
openly transgender woman. But I found out that she was transgender before the fact that
Mm-hmm.
she told us. But it wasn't that she wasn't out
Mm-hmm.
about it. She just hadn't brought it
Yeah.
up. You know.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so you've decided to be out about being transgender,
Yes.
correct?
I mean, I definitely present femme in my life. Like well, like whatever that means. I mean, it doesn't mean that I like am hyper feminine. I try to be hyper feminine like in my life. I mean, sometimes I will I'm not in a dress and heels all the time. You know, like I'm not done up with a full B. Like sometimes I'll wear jeans and like a
Mm-hmm.
big old t-shirt or a big old hoodie and like that's
Mm-hmm.
um but I definitely never made like a huge announcement about me being trans because I don't know, like just that never felt like me. And not to say that that's like not a beautiful way to do it. Like people who like post it on social media and they're like, I am trans now, like here, or not I am trans now, but I am trans.
Mm-hmm.
Um and these are my pronouns. You know, like send out a mass email to your friends and your family members. Like I love that. I love that. Um but that was never something I wanted to do. And so when I meet people, like you said, like I don't go up to people and I'm like, "Hi, I'm trans." You
Mm-hmm.
know, I think that people who have, I guess, made the effort to educate themselves and like, I mean, obviously, like we're starting to see like an influx of trans um people and trans stories in the media, that it's hard not to know like who or what a transgender person is. And I feel like, you know, trans people don't look a certain way, but I think that it's, you know, I think it's becoming and it should become more common for people to be like, "Hi, what are your pronouns?"
Yes.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so that way, like, you know, if I tell you like, "Hi, oh, my pronouns are she her." Great, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. You know, like it's like, "Yes, I am transgender. My pronouns are she her. My pronouns are she her.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you." That's it.
So I think there's a weird obsession in our society to know more than
You need to know.
yeah, and people want to know like people's personal lives, and I don't know if this is because of the media, you know, with reality TV shows. Obviously those are, a lot of them are staged,
Mm-hmm.
but people are really curious about other people and they feel like they can ask all these questions
Right.
also.
Right.
But you're right, like all, if only we met each other and it was always like we always asked about our pronouns, which I see happening more now,
Yeah,
and I
totally.
love,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's a great start to
Right.
getting there.
Yeah.
um yeah. So how has identifying as transgender changed your life? I know that's also a loaded question.
No, I mean, it's okay. I think that it's made me so much happier than I thought it would, you know? Um, I think because I've always known that this is who I am. I guess I, in a way, I knew and I didn't know. Like I knew that I was transgender, but I didn't know that that's what it was called, or that that's what it looked like for me. And like now knowing that I am transgender and living that truth has made me so much happier than I could ever imagine. And that's not to say that every day is perfect and that every day is amazing. Like, no, it sucks. Because there's part of it that sucks, you know? Like, because the reality of trans people, trans women, black trans women, and trans women of color is that, you know, like, we are a target for so much hate. And, and there's just so much more that goes with it, you know? And I think that, like we said, that there's a lot more trans representation in the media. I think that it's a lot of it is, which there's shows like Pose and, you know, Transparent, and we're seeing like, which is amazing. Like we love to see it. We love trans representation. But I think that a lot of the times consumers, people who watch TV at home, they want to consume the good parts. They want to consume like ballroom. They want to consume like the elegance, the femininity, the amazing personalities. Oh, they want to consume the amazing personalities of trans women. They want the good stuff, and they don't want to talk about the fact that transphobia and homophobia is so embedded in our cultures, in the religions that you follow. They don't want to acknowledge that, like, oh yeah, like a girl can say like, yeah, I have a trans friend, and they're going home to their hubby, their partner, who's transphobic as fuck, you know, like, who's at home, like, you know, like, or goes to work and has friends who are transphobic. And so it's very much part of my reality. And so it's just taking it day by day. But I will say that I don't regret deciding to live my truth, because like I said, I'm happier for it, and I'll take the bad with all the good.
Yeah. Why should you regret
Yeah.
being who you are?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you spoke about how there's definitely challenges within religion too, right? And feel free to, you don't have to answer this question if you don't want to or dig into it.
Thank you.
But I know that you grew up in a Catholic home, and you know our parents go to the same church.
Girl.
So I know what that looks like.
Yes.
But what kind of challenges have you faced in your household growing up that way?
I think that I have been very fortunate that even though my mom is very Catholic, and you know what that means because your mom is very Catholic, like she said, our parents go to the same church. Like, we saw each other at church on Sundays for so many years.
Takes lots of patience.
But I mean, obviously before coming out as trans, to my mom, I came out as gay to her. And before that, like, I mean, I know you're not supposed to assume, but like, she had to have known that I wasn't like, you know, I wasn't your typical, like, you know, macho Latinx child that she wanted. And she was never too, like, she wasn't someone who like condemned me and told me that my decisions like would take me to hell and stuff, you know, which is the reality of a lot of people, a lot of LGBTQ plus people. But it definitely has presented like a challenge because my mom is very much in her faith, and I think it keeps her from, I guess, being a little more, I guess, more open than she could be. But I mean, my experience in the church has always been, I've never really felt fully comfortable there. Like for so many years, especially when I started to get older, like when I became a teenager and like, I started like painting my nails or, just wearing certain things. And I just, I just never felt comfortable. And it's so weird because a lot of the things that, they teach you in the Catholic Church is love thy neighbor, forgiveness, and be kind, and, And I felt so judged and watched when I was in a church. And I feel like, like I said, that it was only if it became more palpable to me, more obvious to me the older I got. And yeah, I honestly don't know like how I'd feel stepping into a church now. Like I don't know, like I haven't been to church in a while. Um and I feel like I would even like, not that I would, but I think I would feel like a little bit of an incline to like dress down a bit, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's just because I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And that's funny that you say that you feel like you would dress down. And I understand that because, I mean, I think the last time I went to church, they started putting up signs of, yeah, they started putting up signs of levels of dresses that women should wear. Yes. And I'm like, oh my God.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
So, like, past the knee. And this is a Catholic church, y'all. It's not like I feel like the Catholic religion might not be the most strict religion out there.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I mean, this is my opinion, obviously. But yeah.
That's crazy.
I started seeing that. And I'm like,
wait, where did they put the signs?
Like at the front.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and
That's
you know what? My
crazy.
sister has been called out to by like a lady, like will be in the past
God.
for wearing for showing her shoulders like
Oh
spaghetti
my
straps.
goodness.
So you know what? We're not gonna get into this. This is a whole. This could be a whole other conversation.
A whole other podcast. Stay tuned. It's coming soon. Religion.
Yeah, religion in the Mexican American Latinx community. Oof.
My
Okay.
goodness.
Anyway, but yes, I understand what you're saying. I'm glad to hear that your mother is still there for you, and you're in your household. I feel like you hear so many stories and they're so sad. You see GoFundMe accounts because people have been kicked out of their house. So yeah, I'm glad that you have a support system and you have friends, and I know it still has been challenging for you, but
yeah,
I'm really glad.
Yeah, I think my mom is always going to love me, and I'm so lucky that I know that. I just think that, she's old school. She's a señora, like in her late 50s now, my mom. And she loves me and she shows it in her own way. But I do think that she has resistance still to who I am. And yeah, and I think we're just taking that day by day. We'll just see where we are in the future. But I'm hopeful.
Yeah,
I'm hopeful.
you should be.
Huh.
At least I feel like, or I don't know if I'm in a bubble, but I feel like our world is trying to be open-minded, and I don't know, like I said, maybe I'm in my own bubble because obviously we see so many things on the news and it's crazy, so many hate crimes as well. But like you said, now we're using terms like transgender. We're no longer using transvestite. We're like, and then we're meeting each other and telling each other our pronouns. That's a big step. Even if like your sis, like you're using that.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that's amazing.
Yes.
So earlier you referred to your professor, Alexander Billings.
Yes.
So actually we haven't gotten into what you do or what you're pursuing. Please let us know.
Okay. So I am an actress. I
would snap if I knew how to snap.
I'll snap for her.
Okay.
Um, Andrea has always been a big supporter of my career.
Number one fan here.
She is. She's always been motivating me to take steps, and I love her for that. I love you for that. But so yes, I am an actress.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And what else do you do?
What do you mean?
Well, okay. Well, I know that Jamie's working on writing scripts, working with other creatives, other friends of yours as well. And I know you're a really funny person too. You're always making me laugh. So I feel like you're just a creative person to me. So I want to dive into that because Tiahui's is home to so many creative people. Like we work with a bunch of like teaching artists, and also I feel like folks that are creative and talented gravitates towards Tiahui's. So here you are.
Here I am.
So I wanted to ask, as a creative person, do you feel like being trans has given you a different lens for the work that you do? I'm not sure if that question is clear, but I know that you've been in shows such as Transparent, and I know that you were an extra in Euphoria as well, and that you know you've gravitated towards those shows, right, on purpose or no?
Well, Transparent was a very fortunate experience I had, and it was I was still in school, and I actually not was able to, but I was referred by my professor, Alex Billings. And that's why I said earlier, like, she has played a huge role in, like, me, not only in my acting career, but also just in my life and my gender expression. Because it's funny, I'll tell the story because I think it's worth telling. So I was a senior. It was my senior year at Cal State Long Beach, where I was pursuing my theater arts degree in performance. And Alex wasn't even my professor anymore at the time. Like, I had her freshman year, and we did a show together also my freshman year, but I used to see her on campus all the time. I'd go into her office hours, and we'd just talk. Or I'd see her in the halls. I'd give her a hug, you know. But I didn't have her as a professor anymore. But we had each other on Facebook. And she messaged me on Facebook one day, and she was like, Angel. She calls all her students Angel. She's like, Angel, I need you to call me right now. And I was like, okay. Like, and she like sends me her number. I didn't have her number at the time. And at the time she was already, she wasn't teaching as much, because she was starting to like book like not major roles, but she was booking stuff in the industry, like not just doing theater, but she was booking TV shows. And at the time she was a recurring on Transparent. And so she calls me, and so she sends me her number. I give her a call, and then she's like, hi, Angel, how are you? And I'm like, oh, I'm good. You know what? I just got home from class. And she's like, oh, that's great. That's great. So I have a few questions for you. And I was like, okay, like, you know, like, what is this pertaining to? I didn't say that, but I was just like a little, she even sounded like kind of in a hurry. I don't know. And she was like, so do you consider yourself transgender? And I was like, no. I said no.
Interesting.
No.
I was wondering this the other day whether back then you knew, because like I said, I found out last year.
Yeah.
Right. And I was wondering.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
So I said no. I don't. And this was between 2016 in 2017. I think it was at the end of 2016. And so she asked me, do you identify as transgender? No. She's like, okay. And I was kind of taken aback, but I was like, whatever. And then she's like, if you could be put in a box regarding being a boy or a girl, do you think you could pick one? And I was like, and no one had ever asked me that. No one had ever asked me that. And I was like, no, I don't think so. No. And she's like, this is perfect. And I was like, what's going on? And she's like, so I think there might be a role for you on Transparent. And I was like, what? She's like, yes. So they're doing a I don't know why I'm getting emotional. She's like, they're doing a flashback story for Davina, which was her character on Transparent. She plays an openly trans woman on the show.
We haven't even told our audience what Transparent is. Do you want to?
Oh, okay. So
synopsis.
Yes, I'll do the best I can. So Transparent is a show that is no longer. They had 4 seasons and then a musical finale. And it's basically about a trans woman played by Jeffrey Tambor, who is actually a cis person, but it's fine. So it's about a trans woman who comes out to her 3 adult children and ex-wife. Jeffrey Tambor's character, a trans woman, comes out in a very late age, not late age, but I think she has to be in her 50s or 60s. So she comes out, and it's basically what happens after she comes out as trans and starts living her life as an openly trans woman, and how that changes the dynamic in her family, and just everything that happens after that. And it follows the lives of her kids, her grown children, and yeah. And so that character, the lead, Jeffrey Tambor's character, has a best friend, and that is Davina, and that is who my professor Alex Billings played. I hope that made sense to everyone listening. If it didn't, rewind it and then play it back again. But so that's Transparent. And so they were doing a flashback episode on Davina, my professor's character on the show. And she's like, I think you'd be perfect for this. She's like, so this is what I need you to do. I need you to call Edie Belasco. She's the casting director for the show. I need you to call her and see if she'll give you an audition. And at the time, I was still in school. I didn't even have a car. I lived in Long Beach. The audition was going to be in downtown LA. I didn't have headshots. I didn't have a resume. And she's like, just call and tell her that I told you to call. And I was like, girl, they're not going to give me an audition. What do you mean? And so I didn't even have my theater degree yet. And so whatever, I call the sweetest woman, Edie Belasco, and she's like, oh, hi, so nice to hear from you. Yes, we actually played phone tag for a few calls. I called her, she didn't answer. She called me back, I didn't answer. But finally we got in touch, and she's like, yes, I'd love to have you audition. Can you do I think it was the next day or the following day. And they send me the sides. I had a friend drive me to downtown LA at 6 a.m. And then I was at a Denny's, just running lines and getting ready. I had breakfast there. I got ready in a bathroom. And then so I went to the audition, and it went really well. Edie Velasco was super nice. It was my first audition in the real world, I guess. And I didn't hear back for a few weeks. I want to say 2-3 weeks. And then one day they called me coming out of class. I don't remember what class it was, but I remember walking out of my class. My phone was ringing, and I didn't recognize the number. And I answered, and it was Edie, and she's like, "We'd love to give you the role of young Davina." And yeah.
And the rest is history.
And the rest is herstory.
And the rest you could watch on, what is it? Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime. If you're
Oh.
curious, it
Yeah.
is on Amazon Prime. Transparent Season 4, Episode 5.
Wow. Was that your first time auditioning for
For
a
something, a real audition, yes.
role? Wow.
I had auditioned for stuff in like high school and throughout like my college.
Uh-huh.
You know, like the shows that they put on campus and stuff. I had done those auditions, but that was my first one in the real world.
Wow. And you booked it.
And I booked it.
Wow.
I booked it. Thank goodness. I don't know. Someone was watching over me.
Mhm. Well, you talked about this a bit already, but you mentioned. Well, I actually want to ask this question that I saw from an Alexandra Billings video that I really liked. They asked her, why does Hollywood cast cis people in trans roles? And that's exactly what happened in the show Transparent, where Jeffrey Tambor is playing a trans woman. And I wanted to know your opinion on that. Why does Hollywood cast cis people for trans roles?
I think that, I mean, honestly, I don't know why they did it for so long. And I think that it's great that we're finally starting to see trans people play trans people. And I'm not sure why they did it for so long. I think that it kind of touches on that. They touch on it in that documentary Disclosure that I had mentioned earlier. And like Hollywood and, filmmakers have done this for years. And it perpetuates this idea that being trans is like a costume that comes on and comes off for a performance, for something. And I couldn't tell you, like, I couldn't tell you why they cast people in these roles. I don't know.
I guess a better question would be, what's the problem with doing that?
Well, like I said, it perpetuates this idea that, that being trans is a costume, that that a trans woman is a man in a dress. No, that's not what a trans woman is. And I think it's detrimental to, how people view trans women and trans people. And I mean, even years back, I don't think so much anymore, but there was just like this negative, like stereotype, like archetype thing that was being done with the trans people, with the man in the dress. It was like a joke. And I feel like it's very hurtful to the image of trans people and who we are. It's not an accurate representation of who we are. And so I think the fact that, that now we're starting to see trans people like Alex Billings, Trace Lissette, the cast of Pose, like there has never been that many trans people in a show, in like a big show. Like India Moore, what are their names? Angelica, I can't remember her last name for the life of me. All these actresses, and I think that it's good that we're starting to see these people and these stories told by the people who are living them. It's good that we're seeing ourselves in these stories. I think it's hopeful. It makes us hopeful. There's hope.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it goes along with the same thing with Hollywood representation with Latinx actors or just people of color, black actors, just coming into mainstream media as well. 'Cause we've always been there, but just haven't been out there in such a big or mainstream way. And it's finally happening with shows like Pose or, euphoria even
Yeah.
also. So here's another big question.
Okay. I'm ready.
But why do you think that trans lives is a social justice issue that everyone should be knowledgeable about? There's still so much hate crimes and
Mm-hmm.
discrimination and stereotypes, microaggressions,
Mm-hmm.
so much misunderstandings and hate, and everything we just talked about with church and everything else.
Yeah.
So why is this something that everyone should do the research on and educate themselves on?
I think it's important because we, for many reasons, but like we touched on, there has been so many black trans women and trans women, but specifically black trans women who have been murdered. And now we're starting to see so many anti-trans bills and legislation coming out, and it's like in other states, but still like it just because it doesn't affect you directly, and that's with anything. Just because it doesn't affect you directly doesn't mean that it's wrong, you know. And like we said earlier, just because you think you've never met a trans person, like, doesn't mean you don't know that, you know. And I think as humans and people living on this floating rock, I think that trans lives, black lives, it's everyone's problem. It's your problem, it's my problem. We need to all be informed, and we need to stay educated, you know. You need to know what's going on, and you need to stand up for what's right.
Trans lives are real lives, and
Yes.
I think sometimes folks forget to not even forget, they just don't realize that. And it's a horrible thing.
Yeah, it's easy to just brush it off, like, oh, that sucks. Or like even if you do know someone trans and you're like, oh, that sucks, you know, like, let me go on about my day, like, let me keep scrolling through Instagram. Like, no, like, you need to educate yourself, look up ways to be a better ally, and, you know, keep the conversation going. Find organizations to donate to. If you see a GoFundMe for a black trans woman, a trans woman, a non-binary person, someone LGBTQ plus who shares a GoFundMe because they need rent money, because they need, you know, funds for anything. Share them, donate, you know, like, it needs to be an act. You need to be actively anti-transphobic.
Yes.
You need to be actively anti-transphobic. It is not enough that you're like, oh, well, I have a trans friend. Like, oh, well, I love to pose. Like, that doesn't mean shit. That doesn't mean shit if you're, you know, laid up in bed next to a transphobic man. Like, if you're allowing your parents to say some racist stuff, some homophobic stuff, some transphobic stuff, like, you need to educate. You need to be actively anti-transphobic. I say it again. Like, there's so much that goes into it, but start by educating yourself.
Yes. No lives matter until black and trans lives matter.
Period.
And I mean, even say, okay, so we're in March right now, and it's International Women's History Month. You know, in my circle of social media, folks saying, when I say woman, I'm also saying trans woman. And I think that's important too, right? Because I don't know, this month has been interesting in the media to me, because I'm seeing who posts what kind of things, you know, or maybe, you know, not everyone. I can't blame everyone for like not, you know, knowing everything.
Right.
And for example, I'm like looking at how people spell woman, and I'm like, why are you spelling it that way? That's silly, right? Like some
Yeah.
people don't know that, like, oh, the Y stands for something, or in my case, I spell it with an X because it's supposed to identify the intersections of being a woman, and to me, that includes trans women,
Mhm.
includes women of color, and your socioeconomic status,
Right.
and your history, everything, right?
Right.
But yeah, that it's so important to talk about these things when it's Women's History Month, to talk about these conversations. And I don't think I've seen it enough. I've seen it, but that's why I thought it's so important to talk
Yeah.
to you. And I think I mentioned to you too, like, I want to see more organizations, regardless of whether they work with the LGBTQ community or not, whether that's their focus or not. Why isn't it an issue that we talk about more? So I think it's a practice that we all have to incorporate in our daily lives, and then also in a bigger systematic level, in our jobs, in our careers, in, you know, talking to our parents. And I want to see that. And I think it's really important for, you know, us as allies as well to do the most, because we are in a place of privilege. So.
Yes. And I also want to add, like, I know that I was very passionate about what I just said, and I also want people to know that it's not an attack on cis people and people who are learning. Like, we're all doing the best that we can. And, like, I know you say, like, things that you see people posting on social media.
How dare they?
How dare they?
How could they not know?
How?
Just
No.
kidding. That sounded elitist.
No, but I think that I agree that everyone's doing the best that they can. And, like, it's, again, like, it's not an attack on cis people. I think that, yes, we're all doing the best we can. And we can all do with a little more compassion and kindness.
Yeah. And you're calling people in right now.
Yeah.
So that's what it is. And yeah, and that's what we should practice more as well. Calling people in, if you have the capacity to do so, because that could be draining as well. But my last question.
Oh my God. I'm nervous.
No. I guess, and this could be a whole conversation as well, but just to end, I wanted to end on, what advice would you give any trans folks who may be dealing with the same challenges of growing up in a strict Catholic home, or just being a creative in Hollywood, or, you know, just being trans? Like, what advice do you have?
I would say, I think I would say, there's a lot of things I would say, so I'm just going to start. I'd say be kind to yourself. Listen to yourself. You know, I think that take all the time you need. And if you're dealing with family members or friends that, you know, are not accepting, if you're dealing with a Catholic mother, or, you know, transphobia, homophobia in the workplace, or, I say keep going, keep moving forward, keep loving yourself. And, you know, I think, I guess it sounds corny, but I think that it does get better. And yes, there's so much hate in the world, and there's still so much work to be done. But I think we're on our way to a better, more loving, more accepting, more compassionate world. And you're not alone. And if the worst case scenario, there's a family member or a partner that, you know, you lose someone because you're trans, then you'll make a better family, you'll meet new friends, and it's all going to be okay. But listen to yourself and be kind to yourself.
I love that, because I feel like everyone could use that advice too.
Mm-hmm.
To listen to themselves.
Mm-hmm. Listen to your gut.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
No, stop.
Oh, no, for real. Thank you so much for joining me. And I mean, I was nervous to have this conversation with you. I talked to you about this when I called you about this, and I think that's just something that I felt like it's something I had to do. And I just want to say that I hope that I encourage other folks to challenge themselves in that way. That you're gonna be wrong and you don't know everything, and like you gotta put your ego down and like just do your best to educate yourselves, because this matters. These conversations matter.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, you and I talk about everything, but not in this formal way. So.
Yeah, we definitely don't talk this
So,
formal, but
yeah,
it was.
So yeah, thank you for taking your time and energy, for sharing with us and
Of course.
and our audiences. And well, thanks everyone for listening. I hope you enjoyed our conversation here.
Yes.
And watch out for Jamie and the next Hollywood feature.
Oh my goodness.
She's working right now. Just gotta let you know.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for having me, and thank you everyone if you listened and got this far. It means a lot. It was an honor. It's an honor.
Thank you again for joining us. Please remember to subscribe to our podcast and follow Tiahui's on social media. Please support our online bookstore. You can find the links in our podcast bio. Stay safe, stay creative. Tiahui.